pay should go to the people who earn it. And I should be able, through the educational establishment in New Jersey, through measures of performance by students and teachers and principals, to reward greatness. That is the very underpinning of our American system. Mark Zuckerberg is worth, who knows, $7, $8, $9 billion at 26. At 26 years old, because he developed a computer system that has allowed 500 million people around the world to communicate to each other. And everybody wants to use it. He is rich because he created greatness. No one said, hey, there were a bunch of people who tried to do that and failed. Why don't we give them some of that money too? I don't think Mr. Zuckerberg would be in favor of that. And no teacher should be in favor of someone else being rewarded for their achievement and their greatness other than the children in that classroom who benefit from their greatness and their achievement. That's reform number one that we need help from the legislature on. Reform number two regards tenure. Now, tenure is a concept that was supposed to protect academic freedom. The concept, which began in the higher education system, was professors, teachers in the college systems are supposed to be folks who can be free thinkers and expressors of thought and debaters of thought. Some that are popular and some that are unpopular. And tenure was established to say, listen, those folks who debate, discuss, advocate unpopular things should not lose their job because they are an advocate of unpopular thoughts in an educational community where all thoughts should be able to be expressed so we can learn from them and make our own judgments. I think that's a very solid concept. And I think most Americans would agree with that. That is not what tenure has become when it was expanded into the system that we have now in the K-12 system. Tenure has become a job guarantee. A job guarantee regardless of performance. A job guarantee regardless of success. A job guarantee that even when you are an acknowledged failure, it has become so cumbersome, so expensive, the union has become so obstructive of any attempt to remove teachers from positions once they're granted tenure, that it has become the sclerosis that coats the veins of our school system. So, I don't oppose tenure. Not in the way it was traditionally put forward. But I oppose the sclerotic effect that tenure has had on our educational system in the way it's done now. So we would propose some very simple concepts in this legislation. That every child has the right to an effective teacher. And that tenure should be granted and taken away based on those effectiveness evaluations that we talked about before, as determined by that task force. That we should link student achievement to teacher effectiveness, and that tenure should be granted and maintained for those who show that they know how to teach, and for those who clearly demonstrate they don't know how to teach, tenure should not be granted. If it's granted, it should be taken away, and they should be shown the door, because let me say this. Say you're the parent who walks into a school for back to school night. I went to back to school night a couple of weeks ago. My kids are in 3 different schools. They all scheduled their back to school night for the same night. And so we hopped, Mary Pat and I, from school to school to get to all their back to school nights. What happened if we walked into back to school night, let's say in my 2nd grade, our youngest daughter, Bridget's class, and the principal stood up at the front of the room and said, you know, the teacher this year, she's not very good, but she's got tenure, And we've tried to work with her. We can't really improve her, but we can't fire her. Welcome to her class. We're going to try this year to see if we can do a little bit better. So give us another year to work on it, and we'll see what we can do. Thank you, and have a good evening. Your heart would break, because that's my daughter's only year in second grade. And the things that she's supposed to learn in second grade is the next brick in the foundation of her school life. And if that brick doesn't get put in, that foundation isn't strong. And so she'll fall behind in third grade, and in fourth grade, and in fifth grade. We can't afford any longer to give someone a year off, because that year off is being given to our children. And they'll never recover. They'll never recover from that. And that's what the current tenure system foists upon children all over the state of New Jersey. So I say this. I would love to have teachers spend their entire career teaching. Good teachers, effective teachers, super teachers, master teachers. And we'll pay them to make it worth their while. But that money isn't going to come from new money, from the $25 billion we spend now. That money's going to come from not paying the ineffective teachers any longer. That money's going to come from making sure that we get fair contracts with the teachers' unions. We're going to make sure that everybody joins in that shared sacrifice, and that everybody then joins in the shared achievement of higher student learning. And believe me, it'll make New Jersey a better place. Now, when we try to make these changes to tenure, and we try to make these changes to compensation of teachers, get ready. Get ready, because here it comes. Here it comes. You're going to hear it all. I hate teachers. I hate public education. I don't understand. This is much more complex than I'm led to believe. Teachers just need the tools to be effectively evaluated and managed appropriately so that they can achieve their very best someday in some system that we have yet to identify and never will. Because if we did, it might lead to the firing of lousy teachers and bad principals who hurt our children and their futures. Listen, I feel like the luckiest guy in the world to have gotten this job. I feel incredibly blessed to be able to come here in the state where I was born and raised, where I dragged my poor wife from Pennsylvania kicking and screaming nearly 25 years ago from Pennsylvania. She said, "Were we going to live in New Jersey?" I said, "Yes, we're living in New Jersey." I feel incredibly blessed to have this job and to have this opportunity. And I do not care, not one bit, about getting reelected. Now, I'm not saying I don't want to get reelected. Let's make that clear. But I'm not going to govern in the way that this state has been governed for decades before. No illusion. You did not elect me last November because of my charm and good looks. You did not send me to Trenton to run a finishing school. You sent me to Trenton, I believe in my heart, because you knew the place was a mess, a damn mess, and you wanted someone to clean it up. Cleaning up is messy and ugly, and sometimes it requires fighting and pushing and shoving. Sometimes it requires cajoling and begging and pleading. I can do all that. And I'm going to do whatever it is I need to do to change the state I love. But I will not stand another day of being incrementalist. I will not stand another day here as your governor and say a little bit regarding reforming education is good enough. It's not. We cannot wait. Your children are sitting in these classrooms today. We cannot wait to make it better. We are paying a king's fortune for an educational system which is not giving our children the royal treatment. We are paying a fortune for something that is not giving our children the hope and the faith and the trust that their tomorrow can be better than their today. So when you see violence in our cities, when you see drug use rampant across our state, and you say to yourself, why? Why? I will tell you, I believe one of the reasons, especially in our cities, is a lack of hope. The child who believes that by learning and working and achieving, their tomorrow can be everything they want it to be, doesn't pick up a gun and shoot someone else. A child who believes that their tomorrow can be filled with riches and possibility and achievement doesn't shoot drugs into their veins. A child who believes that through hard work they can be whatever they want to be. What my mother told me from the day I was born in Newark, 48 years ago, until the day she died 6 years ago. Christopher, the only thing that limits you is how hard you're willing to work. She was right, because I had an education that made it so. That made me hopeful for every tomorrow, because all that I had to worry about was getting myself out of bed and working as hard as I could. And I believed in my heart, because my mother told me that I could be whatever I wanted to be. There is not a child in the state of New Jersey who shouldn't be able to believe the same thing. But in Newark and Patterson and Jersey City and Asbury Park and Pleasantville, they can't believe that. And they don't believe that. And as a result, they resort to drugs and violence and other things that lessens our society. I went to visit the Robert Treat Academy, one of the greatest charter schools in America, in the city of Newark. And I met a mother, this is while I was U.S. Attorney, and I met a mother who had gotten her child in through the lottery at the Robert Treat Academy. Her son got picked with a ball out of a bin. And I asked her, how did it feel that night when you were waiting to find out if your son, a kindergartner, was going to get in or not? And she said to me, Mr. Christie, I knew that getting picked out of that bin or not was the difference between my son going to college and my son going to jail. No mother in New Jersey should be confronted with that choice. No mother in New Jersey should be confronted with that reality. Not with what we're paying, not with who we are and what we've stood for. These reforms, and the ones we're going to talk about on Thursday, are the fundamental civil rights issue of our lifetime. And we are going to stand up for it.